to log out of board docs and log.
An open session, and we'll do public input next. Purpose of citizen input agenda item is for the public to provide comments on any agenda item or to publicly address the Board of Education on items that pertain to school business. The amount of time allotted to each speaker will generally not exceed 5 minutes per person to allow all people who wish to speak an opportunity to be heard. However, the president may modify the time limits at his or her discretion. If the speaker has a question for the board, they'll be duly noted and responses will be provided in an adequate, appropriate manner, but the board cannot respond to individual questions or individual comments as part of the public input agenda item. As an additional reminder, the board cannot take action on any item that is brought forth during the public input session or on any item that was not posted on the meeting agenda. Citizen input is an important part of the board meeting agenda, and the board appreciates hearing from the community on issues concerning them in our school board. Tonight we have 3 people who wish to speak. For those of you at home, we're getting one of them in here right now. Hello, could you state your name so everyone can hear you?
Yeah, my name is Cody Endress. I am a teacher in the district and also the head wrestling coach.
Okay, what would you like to say?
All right, good evening. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the school board for the opportunity to speak tonight. I also appreciate the opportunity to speak first. It's my first anniversary for my wedding, so my wife said, "You better get there and get home." So thank you very much. I know we have many pressing matters at this time, so I'm very appreciative to be able to talk tonight on behalf of wrestling, but also for all the other winter sports and co-curriculars. The school board is where I'd like to start tonight. And all I and we as a community can do is thank you for all your time, effort, and dedication to the school district of Lodi. I know that in many instances, you all face impossible decisions, ones that you cannot win, and ones that are met with high levels of scrutiny. I thank you anyways, as I know that you 7 care about this district, and most importantly, our kids. When talking to the people in the community, I'll often say that the 7 school board members are the bravest people in our community, without a doubt. If and when they start to complain about any decisions made, I'll make note of it and mention to them that they could run for school board in the next election, and needless to say, the conversation quickly turns to another subject. Therefore, I cannot emphasize enough our need for all of you, and we thank you all for being in the position that you are in. My purpose in speaking tonight is to open the lines of communication between myself, the community, and the school board in regards to wrestling, the other winter sports, and the other co-curricular activities. I know many may feel now is not the time to be focusing on these activities, but after countless conversations with students and parents, I have to be a voice for them. Our slogan for this district is, "Our kids matter." And if our kids matter, we truly need to be looking at ways to bring them back to what matters to them, athletics and co-curriculars, along with school, of course. Yes, I do understand the associated risks with bringing kids back and opening up more activities. I also understand the procedures that can be put in place to minimize the risks and success those practices have had not only in our schools here in Lodi, but throughout the nation. While I cannot speak on behalf of the other sports and activities, I can speak for wrestling, and I know that USA Wrestling, the WIAA, the Wisconsin Wrestling Coaches Association, along with myself and others, have been planning for months for ways to make a wrestling season work safely and successfully. Each week, new ideas, procedures, and safety nets are coming out that make a possible wrestling season more and more likely. At the November school board meeting, I plan to share some plans to prove to the school board and the Lodi community that having a safe and successful wrestling season here in Lodi is possible. That is one of the biggest goals here in speaking tonight, to open everyone's minds and realize that winter sports and co-curriculars can happen if and when we have proper procedures in place. At a time when the world is asking us to be more open-minded and flexible than ever before, I am asking the same from the school board in regards to flexibility and open-mindedness in opening up these activities for our high school students. The last point I'd like to share, and in my opinion, the most powerful, is that we are Lodi. Hearing the phrase Lodi Pride should make something deep inside each of us beam with pride, passion, execution, and hope. As a community, we need to come together. You look around the world and all we ever see is division, whether it be politically, opinions related to COVID, personal opinions on the equity movement, or any other topic. All we have, and more gravely, all our kids see is division. We need to set the example of unity for them. This is Lodi. Let's be the change in which the world needs to see. In this community, when we come together, we get things done. We accomplish amazing things. When we desperately needed a primary school built, our school board, our faculty, and our parents worked tirelessly to sell the idea of the community, and our community supported it wholeheartedly. We now have one of the most beautiful primary schools in the area. When our football field continued to flood and we missed game after game, event after event, and we didn't know where to turn, a brave group of people laid out the vision for the impossible task of bringing turf to Lodi. There was doubt, there were haters, but there were also people who relentlessly kept the dream, goal, and vision alive. Watching our community go from saying, that turf will never happen, to wow, I want to donate in the name of Lodi Pride, was one of the most powerful things I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. Last spring when COVID hit and our schools were shut down, our school district and staff, with the most important piece being help from our parents, jumped into virtual learning. While it was far from perfect, we shifted in doing what we could to help kids continue to learn. We didn't just let COVID win. We didn't take a back seat or say we better give in and settle. We fought back, we pushed onward, and we made gains. From that spring experience, we learned, adapted, planned, created, and worked tirelessly to launch the district's new online enhanced learning platform. Again, while not perfect, it is suiting the needs of our kids. How did we get here, many may ask? We did it together. All hands have been on deck. The school board, the administration, the staff, and most importantly, the students and parents that we represent. Again, look at all these amazing things we have accomplished here in Lodi when we work together. In conclusion, I bring up all these points to say that as we move forward as a district and a community, we must move forward together. I truly believe we will have a wrestling season this year with the plans we have in place and those that will follow as we continue to learn. However, this is bigger than wrestling. This is for basketball, curling, the hockey co-op, and any of the other co-curriculars as well. I hope and pray that through this message tonight, I can continue to work with the school board, the admins, the parents, and most importantly, our students, to provide a safe and successful winter sports season. In this district, our kids matter. So it's time we start allowing what matters to our kids to start happening. Whatever it takes, we owe it to our kids to fight for what is best for them. Thank you for your time and consideration. I look forward to speaking with you all again soon.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Bill. Hello, could you state your whole name so that everybody could hear you?
Do I need to stand here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My name is Steve Colliard. I'm a parent of 2 high schoolers in Lodi School District. I felt like I had to show up again tonight. It's the 3rd month in a row. When I was originally saw this board meet back in July when I was on vacation in Florida, I couldn't believe that
The motion
is to deny.
is to deny.
Yeah, yes.
So Barb said yes, Angie said yes, Julie,
Yes.
Shelley,
Yes.
Stephen,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
and Adam says yes, passes 7-0. First on the agenda is the Ice Age Trail Hiking Club proposal.
Yeah, so Peloton has requested to start a charter an Ice Age Trail Hiking Club for middle school and high school students. As you look at her information, it talks about taking 6 local hikes and 2 distant hikes in each fall, and then the same in the spring. She's working with the Ice Age Trail Foundation to see if they would help offset some of the transportation costs, and then obviously She included some COVID-19 considerations if she would allow to move forward with this in the fall. Again, the purpose behind the club is to promote healthy lifestyle of valuing nature, physical exercise, and civic involvement through volunteerism, and would provide some access to positive peer socializations and connections to adult role models. So recommend that the Ice Age Trail Hiking Club advisor be paid a stipend similar to what the Homecoming advisor is. So the stipend for that advisor is like 2% for the first 1 to 3 years, 2.5. So it's all laid out for you. So I would recommend approval of that.
I'll make the motion. Shelley?
A motion by Shelley. Anybody second?
I'll second.
Second by Angie. So further discussion?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Julie.
so how does this tie into, club versus?
Sport.
Yeah, well,
Co-curricular.
yeah, our club situation, remember we had the Nordic
Yeah.
Ski Club?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so this is a
is
school-based.
this more of a school-sponsored
Yeah,
club, like
the person says-
Spanish club type
yeah.
of thing?
That's exactly how it's, it's
Okay.
like, it's connected to the school, school person running it. It's not a competition, like when we talked with the equestrian club and things like that, and curling, and about bringing them back in. You know, those are competitions that we're going and traveling and competing with other people, and they didn't want to really follow. But it didn't work out real well, because they would have to follow kind of some of our guidelines, which they would do here. They
Right.
would follow all of everything that we
Okay.
have, so it's more of an after-school. We have other clubs like chess club and things like that.
Right.
And we just
Science
have
club.
those, yeah.
Okay, just
Good
so we're
question.
clear on that, yeah.
Good question.
I think it's brilliant
Yeah.
and an amazing thing to conceive of and to put into place, given the situations we are in. Even in a normal year, I would be very impressed and very happy to approve it, but right now, I think that there would be a lot of kids who would be interested and would really enjoy it.
So sorry to play devil's advocate, but the cost, right? We've had a moratorium on new things without pulling old things away. And we went through a whole rubric of spreadsheets on what we're spending money on and where it's all going and stuff. And so how does this fit into all that bigger picture? I mean, the estimate is $2,600, which is not very much money
Right.
at all.
Right. So, yeah, I did not look in to see if there would be something we would pull out. That could be a conversation that we have at the curriculum committee level. Have that discussion, look at that again, and see if we're gonna add this, that we would, is there something we wanted to remove
Okay.
to make that work? But if we're gonna do that, then you'd have to table this until we had that discussion at a curriculum committee level.
So how does the board feel about tabling and moving this to the curriculum level to go through that and then come back here?
I would
I think that would
argue,
be,
go ahead, Shelley.
Go ahead,
you
Shelley.
need a moment.
No, Shelley, go ahead.
Actually, I don't have it in front of me, so I don't wanna read things incorrectly.
They're just asking your opinion, not for a motion. You seemed like you were gonna say something.
Oh, I'm all for it, yeah.
I was just gonna say that, I am not in favor of tabling it or delaying it in any way, because if it could be instituted as soon as possible, we still have decent fall weather. It's something that kids could do outside in a social way safely, and I think tabling it would, delay that, and Wisconsin has limited nice hiking weather.
Yeah.
I'd like to find a way to make this happen.
Could
even
we,
if it
could we
is-
do this? Could we, since I'm sure, having gone through the finance, that there's a few things that we're probably not spending money on.
Right,
Could we approve this for this year and then allow the curriculum committee to figure out how to make this a long-term thing?
That sounds like a reasonable request. This is for the, right now, this is not for next fall, correct?
Right, correct.
I mean, I think,
Is it doable?
I think what you're suggesting, Adam, is appropriate, that we did say we weren't gonna start new things until we figured out how to pay for them.
But
But
in
I-
the light of COVID-19,
we haven't had some of the sports yet.
Right.
Yeah, so we're saving,
So your suggestion would be pilot it for a year?
Yes.
That would be the term to use, pilot it for a year,
Pilot.
and then take it to the curriculum committee and have discussions about, is this something we want to consider long-term, and if so, is there something we want to take off
Yep.
the list?
So Shelley said she made a motion, but she didn't say what the motion was for.
Do you want to amend your motion to a pilot approval for 1 year?
That sounds like a fabulous amendment.
Okay, and then who seconded that?
Lathrop.
Oh, that was
Would you like to also,
Yes, I'll second the amended
The
motion
amended motion.
also.
okay, any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Barb,
Yes,
Angie,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Shelley,
yes.
Stephen,
Yes.
Bill, yes, and Adam says yes, passes 7-0.
Good comments from everyone too.
Okay, next is the 2020-2021 school reopening plan, which is here every month.
Yeah, so, obviously this has been on our agenda, as you heard a couple of our speakers talk about, since July, right? So we've been talking about this, and so trying to figure out how to reframe this for the board. So if we could look at the board presentation, if you could pull that up. Tyler, I'd appreciate it. That one, yeah. Maybe. You're gonna have to move me, Tyler, sorry. So I just thought it'd be beneficial maybe to just bring it back, go timeline quick. So just a reminder, July 13th, we had a school reopening plan presentation to the board. The following week had an administrative board retreat to talk about school reopening, and then the following Wednesday, we had a special board meeting where we decided to start the instructional model, the online enhanced instructional model throughout the first quarter. A couple weeks later, our regular board meeting, we started talking about athletics, but really didn't feel comfortable moving forward, so we decided to allow cross-country, tennis, and swimming to start practice. August 19th, the WIA came out with some guidance in between there. We had a special board meeting which allowed tennis and cross-country to have a season, but then we moved the rest of our sports seasons to an alternate spring season. We had a regular board meeting in September 14th to discuss metrics, but then we had some technical difficulties, so we ended up having a special meeting on that Wednesday, the 16th, where the board approved the metrics that they were going to look at reopening. Okay, Tyler. And then today, we needed to continue to determine instructional model for the second quarter. So the question really in front of the board, because the motion that they had in July was to go through November 6th. Well, that's before our next board meeting. So the board can do one of two things with that. Either they could say, you know, we've given we've approved metrics. We're going to follow those metrics straight through, and or the board can make a motion to extend online enhanced, or come back blended, or come back in person. Obviously, the board can do all those choices. And then at some point, we're also going to need to determine the status of winter co-curriculars, as the wrestling coach shared tonight, or set a special meeting to do so.
So Vince, can I just ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
When we approved the metrics, I thought we also approved following those metrics starting right away.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure that
Okay.
we go back and refresh everybody's memory about that, and that the board is still online with that, because the board always has the opportunity to go back.
Yeah,
and
we
do
can
that.
always change that up.
Right, so that's the piece I want to make sure that we're going to continue to follow. So our current situation is we're at the online enhanced instructional model for all students 4K through 12. We have approximately 100 students coming in right now. And we brought in students who had individual learning plans, whether it be individual education plans or English language learner plans. And then we've started to slowly bring a few students in who are not engaging in online instruction. We've also served approximately 3,500 meals in the month of September. And tennis and cross countries have had their season. Tennis season ended this past week, and cross country will end here in the next week or so, or a week and a half. And then there has been some open gyms and contact days for athletic teams. Some of that kind of continuing what we were doing for this summer for open gyms, and then the WIA approved some contact days moving forward. The other current situation is every other school district that touches us right now has students in school someplace. DeForest, I think, was the last one. They started 4K to 2 blended last week. They have seen little in-school spread being seen in Dane County 4K to 2 schools or in Columbia County schools, even though some Columbia County schools have closed. Typically, when I've talked to those superintendents, not from in-school spread, it's from people bringing it, COVID in, or people being quarantined, and then having staffing issues, which we talked about back in July already, right, that concern.
Before you go on, so it says little in-school spread being seen in Dane County 4K through second grade schools.
Yeah, because
How many in Dane County is that 2 schools, is that 50
so
schools?
most of the schools in Dane County have in 4K to 2. Madison doesn't, Sun Prairie doesn't, Monroe Grove doesn't, but like DeForest, Wanakee, Verona, Deerfield, Cambridge. I have to go back and see if there's some more, but so when I've talked to those superintendents, they have seen very little. When they contract trace, when they've had issues, it hasn't been from things that happen in school. It's from, again, when you have a student who comes in who may have positive, or a staff member who comes in and positive. Well, now you end up having to quarantine a group. But schools, like we have pretty good mitigation in place. People are wearing masks, there's social distancing, a lot of hand washing and those type of things. So they're not seeing a lot of student to student or staff to student transmission. But they are still, some of them are seeing, again, not all the schools are in, and it's a small group in Dane County. Columbia County has had.
Right, so that's what I'm
Yep.
wondering. So there's 5 or 6 schools in Dane County,
Yep.
and they're not seeing it. And then there's approximately how many in Columbia County?
6 or 7.
6 or 7 more school districts in those counties, and they're also not seeing?
They're seeing not very much, as I said. I've not talked to Partyville lately, but in our last, because they weren't in our last superintendent's meeting. But when I talked to Portage and Poinette and Columbus, and I have talked to Cambria in the past and Partyville in the past, I hadn't talked to them last week. They had seen not much, again, transmission at school. What happens is that somebody will come to school and if there's not proper social distancing, they find out that person's COVID positive, that person comes out and it ends up quarantining a group of kids, or and more importantly, I shouldn't say more importantly, the one that impacts the shutdown or makes you go to online is when a group of staff are impacted, because now you don't have staff to put in front of children. So that's where you're starting to see some of the issues in Columbia County where they've had schools go to online. All right, so
Can I jump in, please, Vince?
say that again?
She wants to jump in.
Can I jump in for a second?
Sure.
Okay, I subbed at Partyville 3 days, and a 7th grade person did have COVID, and the pod that they were in were quarantined for 2 weeks. So
Right.
I'm just giving you the facts, I actually know something, so.
So, and so that's the point, right? So it's not that, and I would not want you to tell me if kids from that person had gotten infected, but they're seeing less of that, right? Because again, the mitigation and safety protocols that are being put in place. The issue that we talked about as a board and as a school district was the concern about bouncing in and out of models, right? And so when you look at Poinette High School had to go to online. Portage had 3 elementary schools online for 2 weeks. Partyville's whole school district jumped to online and just came back, I think, today. Poinette had Portage had their whole 7th grade out for a couple of weeks. Again, a lot of times that has to do with the number of staff who end up being out and then just not having enough staff for that. Some districts are seeing that, some districts aren't. But I'm just, I'm trying to tell you what the information I get from other superintendents, and but there's been very little conversation when I've been a part of those, is that there is transmission going on at school between student to student or bus driver to student or any of those things because of the masking and the hand washing and those type of things that are in place. But a lot of issues with people bringing things in, because our numbers are so significantly high in Columbia
Right.
County. I mean,
They're very high.
oh,
They're
yeah.
not high, they're very
Yeah,
high.
they're very high. They're very high. So, speaking right there, they are. So if you look at 100,000 residents, Columbia County's numbers, case numbers for the past 14 days are 744. Dane County's is 307. When we were talking about metrics and putting them together, that number was about 100.
Yeah.
And that was when we were talking about, bringing kids back in a blended. Columbia County's daily percent positive rate is almost 30.99%. So again, it's very high. Dane County's is, 2.99%, but Dane County also has the Line Energy Center, right? And so most of the time in Columbia County, when people are getting tested, it's because they have symptoms. Dane County, you don't have to have, you might be close contact, and you'll probably run there and go to the Line Energy Center. So Columbia County's percent positive rate has almost always been higher than Dane County's,
Right.
but not this significantly higher. So some of the things that we're doing at school here is we are screening of our staff and students. So any staff or student that come any day, including the school board, take a screener. And if they don't hit the submit button, the people in the office will let you know, right, Mo?
Yep.
Because when I was off-site, even, we even do it when we're off-site. And because with the second, like, are you coming in the building today? Nope. Okay, and then you hit the submit button. We require masks. We require social distancing, hand washing breaks, hand sanitizer, and our HVAC system. There was some information in there in our board docs, just for your information. The Facilities and Finance Committee looked at different things with our HVAC system. One was to run our systems longer, which is a recommendation, so we are doing that. We changed from MERV 8 to MERV 13 filters. And we did explore some ionization and UVC systems that could be added to our HVAC systems, but Facility and Finance at this point decided that not to go down that road. But that may be something as you move down towards a referendum years down, like a maintenance piece, but just didn't feel like that was a prudent step to take at this point. The other piece, just to go back, one thing is social distancing. I mean, we really work hard on social distance, but when you have kids in school, it's really hard to teach in social distance, right? So there's times we're not, especially when you're bringing in students with disabilities, some students who need cares and things like that. You have to be close. And so if there is, and you have to be close with your colleagues when you're doing that. So sometimes when there is, if there is a positive case or things like that, that's when you can start seeing bigger groups of people go out as well, because it's really hard to social distance and work with children and be, working with them in a small group situation. All right, thanks, Tyler. Next one. And then our current communication plan, and again, just to remind everybody, we communicate every time we have a positive COVID situation here in the district, if it's on a bus or if it's in a building, it impacts us. We don't, if it's a student who's not coming into school, for example, if my daughter's a seventh grader or sixth grader doesn't come to school, if she would test positive for COVID, we wouldn't send anything out, right? Because she doesn't have connections with any. But if somebody's in our building and has a positive case, we want to be transparent and let people know that that's there. The piece that frustrates us sometimes is I can't tell you who that is for privacy reasons. So that's why those letters sometimes are very general in nature, but it's just trying to let people know when those things are going on. We don't communicate when we have symptomatic students or staff, right? Or when someone's had a close contact, or when someone's getting a COVID test, or when staff or students are in quarantine or in isolation because of a close contact. We only communicate when we have COVID-19 positive tests.
But you should also make clear that you're contacting with those people who are involved, not the general public on those items. So you do know,
Yeah.
and you are watching it and keeping control on it. Not control is not the right word, but monitoring it. Right?
Contact tracing it.
Right.
Yeah, so the school and our school nurse, Jean Winter's been doing a wonderful job We have to contact trace anything that happens in our district. So anytime we have somebody goes out symptomatic, if it's a student, the staff, she's contacting them, finding out who's been in contact with them. So we know if that person gets tested, if they come back positive, we are able to immediately contact other people who've been in close contact, and have conversations with them. And then, as you have seen with the letters that I send out, I don't send those letters out until people have been contacted, that have been in close contact, and then we tell them, this is the steps you need to take. If it's, you need to be quarantined, or those type of things.
I'm sure you've been thinking about this, but when we start having students coming back, are we going to have a different kind of communication? As far, I mean, a lot of schools are saying, like, how many students are in quarantine, or, you know, like, there's some dashboards.
Yep.
That, seems to me, when we have a lot of students back in the buildings, that we may need to be communicating more about that.
That's actually on our administrative team agenda tomorrow. I put that on there to say, do we want to go down this road of having a dashboard? You know, because there are schools that do that. How many people are out quarantined? How many are overall? And it depends on which one you go. Some of them are they're adding up, like this is how many people we've had, and some of them are just like a shot in time. This is how many we have today, and they update them twice a week. And then once people can come back, they come off that list. But it's something I want our administrative team to have a conversation about, whether we do that or not.
People are gonna wanna know, you know, people need enough information to not feel like they're just getting rumors about
Yeah.
what's happening.
Yeah, it's hard, 'cause I had this conversation with staff on Friday. It's really, one of the things you really want to do is speculate, right? It's really hard not to, you know, and it's really trying to make sure people respect each other's privacy as well. So that's a balancing act, right? Because you want to know to keep yourself safe, but you know, you don't want your information, if you're the person, you don't want your information broadcast all over the place either. So we have to be very careful we don't identify, make it identifiable. So if, like, some of the dashboards too will say, if we only have 1 or 2 people in a building, we're not gonna even, we'll just put a asterisk there and we count them in the total, because we don't wanna make it,
Which building?
you're identifiable, right?
Yeah.
If you take one person out of the elementary school, you know, people can walk through, if we have everybody there, they're like, well, so-and-so's missing, must be them,
Yeah.
right? So, those are the kind of things we have to think through if we would go to a dashboard. Yeah. But it's definitely a conversation worth having. So the other thing we have done is we did a survey. And so if you want to, Tyler, jump to the other presentation. We did a survey at the end of last week, just kind of asking our families what they are thinking about for how things are going with online enhanced instruction. So I'm going to have our building principals kind of each highlight a different slide of just what they took away. And then Dr. Carls is also going to kind of coordinate this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll jump in a moment here to the first slide, which is just kind of a sample overview of the primary school. But with the majority of the questions that we asked, just to give you a reference of the scale, per the question that we asked, families had the option to choose between very dissatisfied, dissatisfied, neutral, satisfied, and very satisfied. So with the neutral, you know, just it could go either way, I guess to say. But we'll jump to the next slide, and this is just an overview of some of the questions that were asked relative to the primary school, and I'll let Mrs. Fossbender talk a little bit about this slide.
Yeah, thank you. So the feedback from the surveys was showing that some of the areas of strength for us at the primary are communication. So what our teachers, they send out a weekly email every Sunday to the families, letting them know what the students will be expected to learn over the course of the week and any updates. So that communication, we have 83.8% were satisfied or very satisfied. Supply pickup, we have that every 2 weeks. Again, we got 83.8% were satisfied or very satisfied. And I think one of the pieces that we have in that pickup is library books. So every student in the primary gets up to 2 to 4 books every 2 weeks. So that's part of that supply pickup process. So I think that's a celebration there. Another one is the responsiveness. 85.6% of the families that took the survey were satisfied or very satisfied. The teachers came back to them and just following through with questions or concerns or things that they had. The 2 areas of growth that I've been working with my staff on, really diving into a little bit more, is the quality of educational experience. And 54.2% of the families were satisfied or very satisfied with that. And then the amount of work, which was 58.7% of the families. As I dive into some of the different comments, a lot of the pieces that I think would make the educational experience better, a lot of the families are saying is if it was more of a blended experience. So that's one of those pieces, but despite that, the staff and I met today during our professional learning communities, and we've been starting to think about with the ongoing model that we're currently in, how can we adjust and modify that to meet our students and our families' needs. And so some of the things we want to have deeper discussions are the small group instruction. We introduce more of those, have more one-on-one times. Instead of having just office hours as general speaking, more have that as time that staff are working with the students. So these are just, again, the 2 areas that the staff, we've begun those discussions today, and we're just going to continue to do. So appreciate everyone that gave us that feedback on those surveys.
So we will follow the same pattern, and we'll go next to our elementary school. And we will let Mr. Passani talk about the elementary school.
Alright, hello everybody. Today was team sports day, so I still have my team sports attire on. So if you're wondering what the shirt, Shelly, you can borrow my jacket at some point if you'd like to.
Love to.
So our areas, some similar trends at both the elementary and OSC. So the elementary has areas of strength are support from your teacher, and at 83.7%, supply is satisfied and very satisfied. Supply pickup as well was a strength, and then responsiveness. So what that tells me is our staff are meeting kids' needs, and they're able to reach out and connect with their teacher, which is not at all surprising to me. That's what I very much believe about our staff and I've seen from our staff. And then supply pickup, we've done it now several times coming spring and fall. To Amy's point, we've also added weekly touchless library book pickup for families that are interested in it, so they can fill out an online form and then pick it up outside of school. The areas for growth is the quality of educational experience was 45.3% were satisfied or very satisfied, and amount of work. And so in the surveys, like Amy did, there were trends that emerged in the LES surveys, and so there were kind of 4 major trends. There is some interest in moving all live instruction to the AM. So currently we do small groups of math instruction from 1:30 to 2:30 across both buildings actually, and that was set up for families that pod kids possibly across schools or across grade levels. It's working for one particular grade, but other grades are seeing that there isn't as much engagement in the afternoon for math. So that was one thing that we're already looking at making some potential changes for. Second thing that's come up is challenges completing some of the specials coursework. So we've already made some of those changes as well. So what's been happening now is all specials content is posted, specials being gym, art, music, is posted Monday morning by 8 o'clock, and then it's available for the full week and actually isn't due until Sunday night. So some families prior to the survey had indicated just having that extra time over the weekend was helpful and not having it feel like, or just having more flexibility in when to accomplish it. There's also an interest in more live teaching as well. And so like Amy, we're looking at how do we use that live time, potentially moving from afternoon to morning, potentially looking at some other ways to just get maybe some more live time in. And then other trend that came through is there are some that feel there's too much work and some that feel there's too little work. So this is this constant balancing act, and I think it comes down a lot to various factors within your own personal situation. So those are some, like Amy, there was definitely some folks that just would prefer a blended format too that came through in the survey. And so then OSC results are on the next slide. There we go. Thanks, Tyler or Mo, whoever's driving over there. Areas of growth responsiveness was even higher at 96.9% satisfied or very satisfied. Supply pickup was 98% satisfied or very satisfied. And support from child's teacher is 91.9% satisfied or very satisfied. So those are very high marks for what OSC is doing, and they're doing a great job. They have had a lot of positive feedback. Their areas for growth, or the areas for growth, are quality of educational experience. So again, this is a trend that is lower, but you see it at 69.3. And then the amount of work, again, is at 81%. So there was definitely some of those similar pieces came through in the OSC results as well. Specifically the amount of work, there were comments on both sides, too much, too little. And so that's just, like I said, gonna be that balancing act that we're gonna try to work through.
Thank you so much. We're going to move now to the middle school, and we'll let Mr. Prozic take that one away.
Good evening. Looking at our results or in terms of strengths and areas of growth, very similar, actually identical to the elementary school. Strengths were teacher support at 79.9% satisfied, very satisfied. Responsiveness, 78.4, satisfied and very satisfied. So when I see those, I'm just pleased because that means that we are doing what we can to follow up to student and staff needs and really working hard to provide the support that our students need to be successful. Still have areas to grow in that, but it's definitely a positive trend. And then supply pickup at 83.8% satisfied, very satisfied. Like Mike said, we do a monthly pickup at the middle school, so it's, I believe, the last Wednesday of every month for stuff for classes, and then Paulaton has implemented a library book pickup every Wednesday. She has books sitting outside, so families come and drop off books and pick up books, so very good. Growth areas, very similar to the others. Quality of educational experience, 52.3% satisfied, very satisfied. Some of the same things you've heard from others. I have families that would prefer to be in a blended model. So we're just looking at it from a systems perspective. What can we do in this current system to improve the overall educational experience that our students are getting? And then amount of work, 60.5% satisfied, very satisfied. So the same thing, when you read through people who left a comment, there's some that feel it's too much work, some that feel it's not enough. So it really is that balancing act of providing what we can, not overloading them, not giving them too little, but finding that sweet spot. And what the survey does provide to us with parents putting their email addresses, we can address some individual concerns or clear up some things, which will be very helpful. And in terms of the work things, there's some that we've already reached out to in providing additional resources for them. So very good information. I'm glad we did it, and I assume we will in a little while do another one and see how our changes have impacted what people are thinking.
Thank you so much. And we'll move to the high school, and Mr. Jelnick.
Thanks a lot, Nick. Hello, everybody. We're going to start with strengths at the high school level. First of all, there are 154 parents that actually filled out the survey, and we had an opportunity to survey students as well, and 195 students filled out the survey, some similar questions. So strengths from families or parents, the supply pickup process, which was 81.8% satisfied or very satisfied. I think that had a lot to do with the cooperation of our teachers, making sure they got all the materials to our EAs and our admin assistants and had them all ready to go. And then our system worked pretty well as far as different grade levels picking up their items from different parts of the building. So it was pretty seamless, so it worked pretty smoothly, and I think our parents appreciated it. Technology support, it helps the fact that Our technology hub is kind of at the high school. That's where Tyler and Paul sit. So any devices that need to be returned and new devices that need to be sent back, people are able to come to the high school and pick those things up. And Tyler is always available to work with anybody. So it helps the fact that he's basically working out of the high school. And then also I really think the fact that our teachers are doing a really good job with technology at the high school level. So they're able to support not only families but the students on a daily basis with tech support. Building communication, we send a Blue Devil bulletin out every month. It used to be quarterly. Our newsletter at the high school used to be a quarterly thing that we sent out. We are upping that to every month, and I think that helps with building communication. So we sent one out in September, we'll send one out at the end of October, and we'll continue that once a month all the way throughout the year. So that was 74% satisfied and very satisfied. And then finally, teacher support. I do want to add one more. 72.1% was satisfied and very satisfied with the support from our teaching staff on a daily basis. So saw some really good things. And it's interesting, the students' responses pretty much mirrored the family responses or the parent responses, with some of them differing just a little bit, but they were pretty close. As far as areas of growth, teacher communication, 53.9% was satisfied and very satisfied, and then time taken to know the child, 50.7% satisfied, very satisfied. And looking at the comments, one of the things that was brought up, probably more than anything else, was small group or peer interactions. So we're going to try to improve on that just a little bit. And then also AP structure support. So there were several responses from parents to make sure that, especially those students that are taking AP classes in first semester, are going to be ready to take that AP exam later on this year. I think overall, one of the things that our staff is going to do is, especially on Wednesdays, kind of pick this apart and pick maybe 2 or 3 highlights that most of our comments were geared towards from our parents, and then start figuring out a way that we can work on those things. Overall, I was really satisfied with the survey. I think it shows that our teachers and our staff are working really hard to make sure that they provide a really good education for our kids. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Before you go on, can I make a comment or
Yeah, absolutely.
make a question? So we don't have a baseline to compare these against. These are people today in this situation, and it'd be very interesting to see what people would have responded a year ago or 2 years ago to these exact same questions. And so I have a question for Mike. Amy, you're new, so you don't have to answer this, but a question for Mike and Joe at the middle school, and then Vince as the previous principal in the high school. How do you 3 feel these numbers would be if we would have taken a survey like this prior to COVID? Anybody want to jump in?
Can I just ask for reference? Are you referencing last spring?
No,
In that
I'm
situation,
referencing like a
like
year
a
ago,
traditional
or
school
2 years
Like a
ago.
traditional school.
Right, traditional, yeah. Since you're here, Vince, why don't you
Sure.
talk about the high
I
school?
can start.
How
I'll
do you
start with the high
feel?
school.
Yeah.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I stopped at Quick Trip today and bought a soda.
Okay.
And ran into 2 of my students, former or current students, and I asked them how school was going. And one was like, fine, the other one goes, it sucks. And I like, you just said that last year, and she goes, yep. So I think it's really hard, because you're asking some questions. I mean, like supply pickup, technology support, I think would be pretty high up there last year. You know, communication in the building, I think would be pretty high. Teacher support, I think would be even higher for most of our kids. You know, I think that feeling of, in the high school, it's not on their list, but the quality of education experience would be higher. I think parents would feel it's higher. The interesting part I see when I look at these numbers is the percent neutral, right? And when you start looking, it's a 5-point scale. So when you see that number at like the middle school, it says 52% are satisfied or very satisfied. If you look into the numbers, another 25% say, or 20% say neutral, right? So then it bumps it up to that 70. But I think there's some things that would be, you know, I think it would be similar themes. I think we'd be higher in some of those areas, but I think you're gonna have some kids who struggled and parents who weren't thrilled with what we were doing last year as well, because it's just really difficult. Everybody has different needs.
Right. So Joe, at the high school Joe, not the middle school Joe, how do you feel about the workload, where some parents and some students are saying it's too much and some are saying too little? How do you feel about comparing these results to what would possibly be results from a year ago or 2 years ago?
I think it kind of depends on what grade level you're talking about and what the classes they're taking. So if they're taking an honors and AP class, I know junior year is a really tough year. So if you're talking to juniors, they probably stand it pretty difficult. So it kind of depends on what classes you're taking. I think that the fact that we've gone to 4 classes as opposed to 8, I know that's a huge difference for kids right now. Just trying to manage and juggle 8 classes in an online format, I think would have been pretty difficult. So even last spring, I know that the workload isn't as difficult, I would say, just because they only have those 4 classes. So we're only managing them every day, and if they have homework, they have to have that ready by the next day. So I guess it depends on the grade level and it depends on what type of classes you're taking.
Could you go back to middle school?
Yeah, and I would just to echo Joe, again, having a high schooler, a lot of it does depend what classes, right? Because a lot of times you'd have kids talk about their A-day classes were really hard, but their B-day ones really are out. Man, I really don't like my B-days because it's really, so if you end up having 2 AP courses right now and a couple other pretty heavy courses, so that workload is really difficult. Even with a straight block 4, where next semester may not be so difficult just because of how those classes balance out. So that's a difficult thing to tease apart.
Okay. Joe, do you have anything to add for the middle school?
Not a lot. I think if you were to do this survey, and we did survey a number of families last spring, I think our numbers are much higher now.
Right, but prior, like last year, if we would have done something like this a year ago, or 2 years ago.
I think Ben's kind of summed it up. I mean, I think teacher support and things like that would even be higher amount of work. To be honest, I would hear similar things when we were in person. Some classes it was too much work, not enough work in others. So I think there'd be some similarities, but to me, I mean, there's no doubt, obviously, the educational experience that we can provide in person does not compare with what we can provide virtually. We're doing our best, but it's like comparing apples and oranges.
Mike, go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things that I didn't talk about at all, but there were a lot of comments about the structure that we've developed. So having an hour and 15-minute block and expecting kids to be on in Google Meets, and we're taking attendance. I got a lot of positive feedback about that. So they really appreciate the structure for the most part. I don't know if the students appreciate it as much because they were able to sleep in until about 10 o'clock and start their schoolwork in the spring, get it done by 11:59 p.m. But I know the parents really appreciate the structure. So there were a lot of positive comments about that for sure.
Okay, Mike, at primary school or elementary school, do you want to add anything or?
No, I mean, I think whoever Joe Prosek, I think, said comparing apples to oranges would be super hard to predict because even people that may have been happy or sad with something, I think whatever they were happy or sad with in brick and mortar in like October of last year would probably look very different than what they're even rating on in online. Like responsiveness, I mean, there's definitely people that kids came to school, they interacted with the teacher when they needed to, but could have very little interaction, and so they'd be totally fine with that. And now could be getting significantly more interaction with teachers because it's so necessary in this model. And so I don't know that I could really guess. I do understand and appreciate the question, but it'd be pretty haphazard on my part to guess what it was.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Potter, would you mind going to slide 44, please? So again, there's a lot of data information for the board to review within this presentation. We're not going to spend time going through every slide, but on slide 44, getting there. Oh, back one. Here we go. So this was the question, the quality of your child's educational experience. And again, this kind of shows you the scale, and you can get a reference for the percentage within each building that kind of fell into that neutral category. Again, one thing we were thankful for was the comments, so just that kind of qualitative piece of the survey. And so as we started to go through those comments, you really could compartmentalize them into a section that felt like their qualifier for meeting that satisfied category would really be have to have their students in some sort of face-to-face experience. But, you know, and that is good information for us to have, and we honor that information. Also, there was kind of that other side where there was information that was relative to the current instructional model, and are there any themes that were developed under there that we could tweak as we move forward? And that's what you heard some of the principals speak to a little bit when they were talking. If you could go to the last 3 slides of this presentation, Mr. Potter, that would be wonderful. Here's another question that we wanted to highlight, and something for us, I think, to reflect on, and the board as they make their decisions moving forward as well. But knowing what you know today, if the metrics were to guide the district to move to a blended instructional model, which of the following options would you choose for your child? And for this question, you know, we're really looking to get that information from families, get an idea of numbers or approximate percentages of if we moved into, let's say, a blended model, and so how many students would we still be looking to serve in a full-time virtual, and how many would say, I would feel comfortable sending my students back. And so we'll go through those, and you can see here, the red indicates the percentage of those who filled out the survey who felt that, yes, we would send back in a blended instructional model if the metrics so deemed fit. And you can see it's 83% about at the primary school, 85% elementary school, 53% at OSC. If you can go to the next one, 72% at the middle school, and 60, roughly about 70% at the high school. Upon reflection, I find myself, and Mr. Brining and I were talking about this today, wondering if that question were to take out the piece that speaks to the metrics, and just knowing what you know today, which of the following options would you choose for your child? What would we find ourselves wondering, what would that look like? Obviously, the quantifier in here is the metrics, but we wanted the board to also have highlight this information specifically for you as well.
So do you really feel that people paused on the word, the metrics? I think my personal opinion would be they blew right past that and said, oh, my kid in school.
Nope,
I
don't think so. Nope.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think I'm sure some people may have, but, yeah, that's I think it's a very important sentence, part of the sentence.
Yeah.
Like if those metrics that we considered were positive or like favorable.
I don't know, but when I get home, I can ask my wife to see what she did.
No, I think it's both. I mean, I'll be honest, I think some people, as you said, blew right through that sentence, and there's other people who that sentence makes a lot of difference.
Right.
In retrospect, either taking that metrics piece out or asking both those questions, right? Leaving one with the metrics, and then saying the other one, regardless of the situation, how do you feel? And again, that's a quantifier too, regardless of the situation, doesn't sound right. In the current situation, I guess is how you would want to say that. So when we follow up the next survey, or whenever we do a survey again, we will definitely need to add that part.
Well, it's still interesting information to have.
Yeah.
Well, you have to have
There's gonna
this,
be a significant number of students who will be online no matter what happens. We knew that.
Yes, it supports our planning process.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really what we wanted to look at, is like, how can we kind of get and again, we weren't making parents commit. I made that clear, it's not a commitment, because we don't know, right? So when we know when we're coming back to blended, we want to then have parents commit to that, and that might change people's minds as well at the time. But just making sure that information's, that we can have that to kind of wrap our hands around a little bit, to have an idea of planning, to bring people back as well. And again, this is we just went through the slide 54, 55, right? There's a lot of information here.
Yes.
And we're not gonna spend the whole board meeting, we just wanted to summarize it for you. but it's been there for you. We will also post this on the website. We wanted to make sure it was as transparent as possible, and parents will have the opportunity to look through all that information as well, in each of those questions. But we just felt it was important that you had that information, and then we had people summarize it. All right. You want to switch back to the other presentation? So next slide, there you go. So just a few more slides here. Just the benefits of our current online enhanced instructional model is that, and really what we talked about the whole time, is that consistency, consistent delivery of instruction, right? We've had staff who've been quarantined, they've been able to teach from home. So at this point in the school year, we're about six and a half weeks in, we've had 31 staff members out at one point or another due to COVID-19. And again, it may be just for a day or two because they had symptoms, they got tested, they were back. But we've had 18 staff members who have been out 10 to 14 days due to quarantining and things of that nature across the district. And again, that's just again, you see the numbers in Dane County and now in Columbia County. It's not that surprising that, you know, people have had that.
But also those numbers with only 100 kids across our entire district.
Absolutely, right. Yeah, and again, we haven't had any evidence of spread at school at this time, but again, we don't only have 100 students, and we work really pretty hard to socially distance our staff, even during our PLC meetings and things of that on Wednesdays. We really try to focus and let people know that they can do them online, but they can, if they're together, they need to be social distanced as well. So it's just good information for the board to have. Again, we don't have people with this model. We don't have people bouncing into different. We've been in one instructional model the whole time. All of our students have been, and we haven't had bounce with no warning, right? So sometimes some of our other districts around the area have had to, almost like a snow day. You find out your child's going to be 3, 5, 2 weeks. They're now home, and same with teachers. To turn around and turn from one plan to a different plan is very difficult. And obviously it's the safest model in regards to COVID. If you go to the other side of it, what's the negatives? It's very difficult, right, for our students, our staff, and our parents, right? And I think our survey results show that. It's really disruptive to our families, especially those with the youngest children. It's a different way to teach for our staff. It takes a lot of planning and preparation. It's not easy to catch when students are struggling with a concept. You know, in a classroom, you can see that puzzled look on a student's face and re-emphasize it. It's more difficult to see on a Google Meet with, you know, a group of kids there. And obviously, there's such a limited interaction with peers in this model as well. If we move to the next model, the benefits of a blended instructional model, again, the benefit of that is some in-person instruction. It takes some pressure off of our families. It's still going to be difficult if we're coming in only 2 days a week at elementary or primary school level. That's still hard. And then they're more responsible for things on the days that our kids aren't in school. It's easier to assess our students' progress because we have them and provide interventions. Fewer students in the building versus a traditional model, which allows us for social distancing. And then there's some limited peer interaction with students in your own classroom, right? So we wouldn't have classes interacting, like Mr. Richter and Mr. Carl's classes wouldn't get to play together, right? But within your own class, you'll have some interaction with your peers. Negatives is just the potential disruptions to the educational model. Students at home, the other piece is like students right now, when they're at home, would not get live interaction with their teachers and staff members. Right now, one of the things that came with that survey was that people kind of appreciate that live interaction, that structure, as Mr. Jellick was talking about. If we move to a blended model, the days you're at home, you don't have that. It's more of work to do without that interaction from the teacher, because the teacher will be busy with the students that are in front of that teacher. The same way when your child's in school, they'll be focused on your child and the other kids will be home. It's real difficult to plan for staff, to plan for what's going on here, plus online instruction. Again, I just talked about limited pure contact, you'd have some, but it'd also be very limited. You'd be in one room all day and, following those CDC guidelines, social distance, not sharing things and things of that nature. And then increase our chances of coming in contact with someone with COVID, which throws us back into that disruption piece. The other piece that the board is going to have to consider here at some point is co-curriculars. Tennis and cross country have run very successful seasons. They've had some disruptions based mainly on other teams. So the tennis team, I believe, lost a match, or actually 2 matches, I think. The cross country girls team lost a meet because the other team was restricted due to COVID. Our middle school cross country, same thing happened. We have had open gyms without issue. The WIA has come down and allowed some contact days now, so which means that the coach can actually do some coaching. So like football and soccer have taken advantage of that for their social distancing and doing some drills and things of that nature, and had that opportunity, kind of like we did this summer as well. For co-curriculars, our winter sports season will start November 16th, so we'll need to make a decision regarding co-curriculars in late October. And there was a fall athletic update in board docs. One of the things that we did in the fall was we were able to push some things to the spring, right? So our fall sports season we pushed to the spring. We don't have that option with winter sports, right? Your options are run a season as currently scheduled, push back the beginning of the season by a few weeks, or cancel the season and activities. Really the decision points are, and again, just always revisiting these reopening school metrics. Do we continue to follow the metrics that we adopted in September? Or are we looking at having kids come back in any other manner at this time? So that's really the first decision. The second decision point is the next one. Co-curriculars. Our athletic department and high school administration would recommend that we set a special meeting in late October. Gives us a few more weeks to see what's coming down for co-curriculars and athletics. And then, again, decide them as a group or by individual activity. My guess is the board did an individual by activity last time. They would want to do the same thing. And then have it at that time also thoughts about allowing community youth athletics into our school buildings. And the reason we talk about that is there are kids who are doing these things regardless of what the board's going to decide, right? So if you have, for example, basketball coming in, well, if they're coming in under our guidelines, we can put some real strict guidelines on how they're doing and things of that nature. If we don't, some kids will not have that opportunities. Others will go and go play AAU and do other things and be actually putting themselves more at risk at times. So that's a decision we'll have to make. And then obviously any other decisions they want to make, so.
Does WIAA have any plans to, or at this point, to make any further determinations or rulings on winter sports?
They just released some guidance. I have not made it all the way through it yet, but they are going to run seasons. Because, and again, I would obviously like to have more from the WIA, but they're a statewide organization. So what makes sense for Lodi, Wisconsin may not make sense for Spooner. So if teams are willing to play, they're willing to provide that option. And they're going to try to show you the best way and the safest way to do that. I shared, I know, with our athletic director and our high school team, 2 weeks ago, there was a really nice article in the State Journal about Edgewood and Waterloo volleyball on the front page of the sports section, showing they played a tournament, and the girls are all masked up, right? They're playing masked. And they're like, it's really stunt to start, but we're used to it now. We play with masks on, right? And so, like, if that's where we go, that may be what happens as you go down the road, is that if kids are playing basketball, they're wearing a mask, or if they're playing curling, they have a mask, or those types of things, or hockey. They already have a shield.
They say don't wear a H95 mask, one that is a little more breathable, that kind of stuff, and then that's how Sauk Prairie's football team is their mask with a face shield. So they're providing guidance of that nature.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm leaving a pause on purpose, sorry. Does anybody have anything that they want to say or discuss, or now you had this presentation? Yeah, I got
Well,
it.
I'd like to say, I would like to say that I would really love to see the 4K through the primary school, backing up on the model. But I understand with the figures the way they are right now in Columbia County, that's pretty much impossible. But is it possible to start planning that process, or you have?
I think they already have, yeah.
Yeah.
Very well.
Yeah, later in the board meeting, Ms. Fossbender will share a video that she's put together, so when we start into a blended model, kind of sharing like what that would look like. These are so kind of a public service announcement, and our other building principals are working on putting those things together as well.
Well, I think that's really important. Again, we said this over and over, like, so people understand what it would look like, so that when you need to make that final decision of, do you send your kid to school that, you know, feel comfortable, you know. Right.
As comfortable as you can be. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, Mr. Richter, how do you think playing hockey would work wearing a mask?
Yeah, I think that's one of the best ways to approach it, is a face shield with a mask, a breathable mask, and then, I don't know if that's if we want to talk a lot about winter sports, but I think that's one of the best approaches. Hockey in itself is a little different. There's some data out there that's been calculated, and they're talking about within 6 feet contact being at like 2 seconds. So they've done more research with hockey. Football's a very good example as well. I think one would really want to talk about football at some point and how they would best protect themselves. But obviously the initial concerns were a mask like this is very difficult to breathe and cool yourselves down. And so hockey is in a cold environment, so that helps with natural cooling of the body. But that's what I would recommend, is that the kids wear a polyurethane mask as well as a gaiter or whatever that makes the most sense.
Thank you. And our altered football schedule would be colder.
Yeah.
It will be, and it's outside. I mean, again, it's outside is a much better place.
Right.
That's the problem with obviously winter athletics, is everything is indoors.
Right.
We talked about scraping off some ice over out on Lake Wisconsin, but we just didn't think that would work.
Trying to figure it out.
It would be awesome though.
As a Texan, I have a little issue with that, but that's a.
The
a
lighting
personal thing.
issue is gonna be.
We'll take care of that.
Yeah, and then somebody's pickup truck goes through the ice and we're responsible. So, no, we kind of talk about that back and forth, like, oh, it wouldn't, if we had an outdoor rink. Right?
We did, we sure did.
And Boney.
So I guess really what it comes down is the board, two things, is do you want to stick with the metrics that we've kind of gone through and continue to revisit this every month as we go? Because our metrics right now obviously don't have us coming close to school, right? And secondly, do they want to set when coming co-curriculars, set a special meeting at the end of the month? We could do it on the Wednesday that we have contract review, that last Wednesday of the month, or we could do it on Monday. We can make that decision at the end of the board meeting, but.
Right, so can we flip that first question? So we as a board voted to follow those metrics, to
We did.
take emotion out of it, right? To take personal opinion out of it, and follow the science and the medical recommendations. And so anyone on the board is welcome to say, would we like to go, not continue with our current decision? But I think our current decision is always gonna stand until someone wants to bring it up and try to change it, like Julie was saying, how can we get younger kids in, right? So, I mean, we may have teachers who would want to volunteer, right? Who would say, COVID is not an issue for me and I am willing to take that on. That's a whole different story, but it puts everything in turmoil when something like that happens.
Well, the difficult piece is, and as I shared with the board, I just came back from quarantine.
Right.
Right? So I was quarantined, and it really comes back to that essential worker piece, right? So in the state of Wisconsin, educators are not considered essential workers.
Right.
Right? So my wife, who is a nurse, right? We both were tested. We both tested negative. She goes off to work because she's an essential worker, and then goes to work and has PPE on anyways, where I was not allowed to be at work, right? I had to work from, and I was fortunate enough that I can work from home.
Right.
I have some staff who can't work from home. So that's the hard part. Even if somebody volunteers that I'm gonna do it, and then I need to have staff that, you know, you just never know, right? That's the part with COVID. It's, the best example I've been given is COVID's, if you've had young children, COVID's like glitter, right? So, you know, your daughter plays with glitter on the table, and next week you find it in the attic. And the following week it's in my office, right? And then you drive up to grandma's 3 hours north, all of a sudden it's in your pocket. And you're like, where did that come from? And it's just, it's one of those things where, especially with the numbers as high as they are getting in Columbia County, and as I said, I don't know if I said this before, but Dane County and Adams County were the only two counties the last 14 days that the numbers have kind of come down. But Dane County's starting to, they don't want to say it yet that they're creeping back up, because they want to wait for the 14-day data. But on my call today, they were talking about that coming back up. And that the hospitalizations that they're seeing are across the age ranges. And obviously they're opening a field hospital in Milwaukee because of the concerns with that. But again, it just comes back to, it doesn't take much for us not to have enough staff to run a certain part of these buildings. It's easy to sit back and be judgmental about somebody getting in contact, but it's so easy. I mean, even if in your small group of people, to come in contact with somebody who has it right now.
So up until recently, the state of Wisconsin has been able to keep up with testing.
Yeah.
But we're now peaking, and they're looking at not being able to keep up with testing,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and they can't make their contact tracing days, like their goal is always to 48 hours. They're at Dane County, they're like 50% because the labs aren't getting the information back to them because of the testing piece fast enough that they can contact trace. So people are positive for, 3 days before they are noticed after they've tested, so.
Right.
And they're doing the best job they can. I mean, the Line Energy Center is amazing how they run that place. It's just phenomenal. The organization and the systems they have in place down there.
So that was recently switched from National Guard
Yep.
to Public Health,
Yep.
and they are not open as much as they were before.
No, they took off their Monday, so those times have, I went down and got tested 2 weeks ago, it was 15 minutes. Last Thursday, it was an hour wait. And when I left, it said 90-minute wait. And then later in the day, it was, 15, 20 minutes. Again, it just depends. So and National Guard's still there, they're still transitioning. But yeah, they've shut down some of their hours.
Okay, anybody else have any other comments about what we just discussed?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
When you said 30-some teachers had challenges with COVID, that's out of 130?
Yeah, that's out of our entire staff. And not just teachers, that's like staff.
So that's over 200.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're talking.
That's what I wanted clarity on.
Yeah, not just teachers, it's staff in general. Because again, I would be one of those numbers. Right, and this district can run pretty smoothly without me being here. Some would argue more smoothly.
So how do you want to set the special meeting at the end of October? Do you want Mo to contact all of us and make that happen? Or?
Well, I think at the end of our meeting, we can
Okay.
probably set a time, like or if we can do it now, it's up to you, but my recommendation would either be that first Monday, or that last Monday, or the Monday the 28th. Because the 28th, we have a contract review committee from 4:30 to 6, and we could do it after that as well.
Okay. So on the 19th, we're having the annual meeting.
Yep.
So the 26th, we could meet, or the 28th.
Yeah. That works for people.
Shelley and Barb, how's the 26th or the 28th work for you guys?
That's fine with me. I would just like to get K2 in. And I know we can't, but man, oh man.
Right, but this will be for fall sports, or winter sports, excuse me.
I know, I still wanna get K2 in, I mean,
Well, so, the number of COVID cases is us. It's not me, and it's not some other person, it's us altogether. We are the number of COVID cases. And so if we continue to wear masks, and all the research is showing it, there's huge spikes coming from bars and restaurants in younger people. If we continue down that path, these numbers are gonna stay high. So if we want kids in school, we have to alter what we're doing. It's all of us, it's not one of us. So we all want our kids in school, all of the kids, not just 4K through second grade.
yeah, I know, I've been praying over this and hoping that we could get our stuff together, and we just can't do it. And it's just so frustrating, when you've got your hopes up, and we've worked so hard for months to try and get things together, and I hope that people realize this is just, it's like a debilitation, because we can't do what we really would like to do with our kids, which is get them in school. And we can't put things in place when they can't be put in place. Sorry, I just get frustrated, so
Well,
I'm undone. Oh, go ahead.
and just to speak to that point, Shelley, I mean, when we sat down in late July, that was one of the big concerns we had, was we talked about, data was showing that 6 to 8 weeks, we were 6 to 8 weeks behind Texas and Arizona at that time. Ended up being 10 weeks, right? Because we were right there where they were not, right? And so that data was kind of staring at us when we made these decisions. But anyhow, back to the date, is looking at that date. Because we really need, the reason we're asking for a special date is because if we wait till the board meeting the 9th, the following week is practice, right? So that's really little time to schedule games and events and officials and all those things and make sure.
If we can, let's do it on that Monday so that we're not pairing up with another meeting
That's fine.
and driving it long, and we need to
Monday
be,
works better for me.
we need to be fresh and on our toes for that meeting, so.
Julie, you okay on Monday?
Sure.
Monday the 26th, I have a blood donation at 4.
It would, yeah.
Well, you'll be all refreshed when you come to it at 5:30.
No, she won't.
No, I won't.
It's not the way it works.
What are we looking at, 5:30?
No, well,
My blood donation is at 4, it's right outside of town here.
Right, could you donate blood on a different day?
Yeah, I'll just call and move it. I'd rather do the 26th also.
And then Barb?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, so the 26th.
26th, not 28th.
So then Mo will put that on our calendar.
What time?
Does anybody have a time preference?
Earlier is better if we can.
It's really hard for me to get there before 5:30.
Okay, so 5:30 then?
Perfect.
That sounds good.
Okay, 5:30 it is, on the 26th.
5:30 on Monday the 26th.
Yes.
Thank you.
one of the things, okay, I'm gonna say this out loud, I know I'm gonna pick up flack for it. I understand that people are lobbying for things to happen. And it's not that we're not listening, but we're getting so much information, I don't know that it would matter. It's not that I don't care. So what I'm saying is, it's not gonna serve us well if we have 50 people line up because they want their winter activity to happen. That's not gonna serve our purpose. And it's not that I don't like to hear from the people, but we're gonna have the information we need to make the decision, and do we really get swayed by that?
Well, so I think what we're gonna hear is risk factors of a particular sport, and then how they're gonna mitigate and go about trying to minimize those risk factors. And then you'll have to decide, are they gonna do a good job of making that a low risk from a high risk, or not, based on what they're gonna do. And so that will be new and different.
But I think that stuff should come through the administration and the coaches.
Right.
Not through public comment, I
Got
think is
it.
what Bill's saying.
Got
that
Yeah.
public comment, we get a bunch of data that we haven't had time to look at, that we haven't had time to digest, and we're usually gonna, so people should work with their coaches to help them make the case possible. And then, I love, as much as we get, I love getting the emails on both sides, because I think it does give a general opinion. But I would say taking a meeting and turning it into a 5-hour meeting doesn't bode well for any decision, so.
That's what I'm trying to communicate. You know, if we could get a head coach of a given sport or a representative of that sport.
I think that's what they're planning, right?
Well, our idea would be to have a conversation about we're meeting Friday, to have a conversation about how we can move forward with a recommendation and probably bring that and share that with the coaches before we brought it to you, right, and get their feedback on it. So they know, and coaches can come speak to that specific plan versus not knowing and then having to try to speak to generalities.
Right.
Right? They can speak to specific portions of that. And again, just like every piece of this, you see every single side of these issues, and wanting to do what we can for kids, but also just trying to make sure that the numbers are being driven, that we're keeping people safe, not just our students, but our families and our communities and our staff.
Yeah, I think we're on the right track. I just don't want us to, we need to keep our focus as to what we're there for, and we already know how difficult it's gonna be. That's not going to be aided if it gets stretched out by parents or whatever wanting to.
I think, a lot of times that sadness that is being expressed is, we do need to hear that, we want to hear it. But, a general sadness and frustration with what's happening is different than looking at logistics and looking at pragmatics. And, it's not always directly influencing our decision just because we are sad. We all are. And
the decision is hard enough. We don't need extra wear and tear. We understand what's at stake.
People do have the right to tell us that, though.
Yeah.
Always.
Yep.
I gotta say, I'm very pleased with our community and the amount of information that they're willing to give to us, and sometimes they're upset about it, and they have every right to be upset about whatever it is that isn't working right now. But I want our community to know that we, as a group, are doing our best to make the best decisions with what we have at hand, and that's how we run it the whole way through. And we really appreciate, I'll speak for myself, I really appreciate the people that are giving us comments and the people that care. You are here and you come to these meetings because you care about it, just like we do. But we are all on the same side. That is the one thing I want people to understand. We're all on the same side. We want to get the kids in. We want to get them back where they need to be, but we can't do it with a clean conscience unless we have all the facts and evidence that we can do this together as a community. And the more we can help people with, reminders about masks and social distancing and hand washing, the better. Not being mean about it, just, being clear about it. All right, I'm off my soapbox.
Okay, there's more stuff on this.
I just wanted,
Yeah, go ahead, Barb. No,
oh, sorry.
No.
I just wanted to add one thing. And yes, I want to say we want to make the best decisions for the students. I think we're all here for that. But I just want to keep the forefront too that we have to preserve our staff during all of this too. And that's a large factor in the decisions, not just for the students. We have to know what's best for the staff. I think this pandemic has potential to have a devastating effect on education. It's not like we've got teachers readily available waiting to get into schools anymore. I mean, we have a teacher shortage already, and I think if we don't also consider keeping our staff safe, intact, we could really be looking at, quite an issue going forward, not just in Lodi, I mean, think across the board. With burning out staff, people just not wanting to, to deal with it anymore. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. There's other stuff in this. Do you want to go over some of that?
No, that's just for your information, right? So that all summary for the board to look at. Again, the pieces that are in there are the presentation the two presentations we just reviewed, the rubric that was approved for moving between models, which is updated on the website every Monday. There's a fall athletic update in there, which I kind of touched on, but again, that's more for information to kind of lead into the next conversation you're going to have. And then just the UVC system and the ionization system, the bids that the facilities committee looked at and really decided not to bring forward, but thought that at least the board should have access to that information. So,
Could I just ask about that?
Yeah,
I wasn't at that meeting. Is there good evidence for those systems
Yes.
as being becoming
There-
useful?
There
Helpful?
definitely is. There's like everything in this whole thing, there's trade-offs. And you've heard me talk about before about layers of protection. And I think that is still the path we're on, and that is where we're going. And I think the facilities committee feels that we're doing enough of those layers at this point that we can't guarantee anything, that we can provide a level of safety that we're all comfortable with. There is an additional level that we can take with proven technology. The problem is the implementation of those technologies varies greatly, from in-air handling systems to on-ceiling systems to in-air purification systems. And the world right now is scrambling to provide those solutions. My company is one of those. And even from that perspective of seeing, a potential sale, it's kind of like, I don't feel like we're there yet. And we're also talking about a very large sum of money that is not the deciding factor, because I think we've all agreed that we would spend whatever we could spend to bring people back. But what that provides us for what it's worth at the moment, there's not a benefit to it above and beyond what we're currently doing. Am I doing this justice?
Yeah.
I guess I'm just kind of saying it's like, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and we're like we aren't going to have studies that say the incidence of COVID has been reduced by 50% by putting these systems in place, because we just can't. It's too soon to have any of that. So that was,
what we do know is that these things do kill live virus. It's proven, but the virus has to get to it. And the problem with like UVC is that UVC is not necessarily good for you. So getting you with the virus close to the UVC that's where there's a lot of churning about how to do this. And part of it is that the regulatory agencies are on the very beginning of figuring out and so OSHA contradicts the FDA, that contradicts UL. We're on a committee right now to try to help them all figure that out. And I think in 6 months, we're gonna have a much better path. And the truth of the matter is, if you placed an order today, it would be probably the end of the school year before we get a system installed.
just logistically.
And at that point, there's gonna be so many other different systems that might be better for us. And there's some new ones we've talked about, which is the ionization, which is in here. A lot of great research. It seems to be a very good solution. It is all the research currently is done by the people who manufacture it, which is always a little suspect. But it's got some good science behind it, so it looks like it has a lot of potential. So I think our feeling was we couldn't really jump to the solutions we wanted because they're not really there. And the other ones didn't add us enough benefit over what we're already doing. I mean, Vince has already said tonight that when you put the proper things in place, you can put together a pretty good track record. If the load coming in, and this is the key point, the load that comes into the building is the problem. if you have one person in a classroom who has COVID, there are systems that can prevent that, including the mask, the 6 foot difference. If you have 3 or 4, now you're talking a bigger deal. And even if you had an air handling system that had UVC in it, you would have to suck all that air out of that room so quickly. It's another layer. It's another, if masks provide 30%, UVC's maybe providing another 20% on top of that.
70.
Masks are 70%, sorry. UVC is maybe another 20%.
Well, that's good info. I was looking at that, and I saw the research, the log, the data was coming from the company. And I'm hoping that some of these systems and other types of systems will become well regarded as people try them.
I think within 2 years, you walk into a doctor's office, dentist's office, school, you're gonna see one of these types of systems in them. And I think we're gonna have to go to a referendum at some point to put it into our schools.
Right, because without COVID, these are gonna take pollen out of the air, these are gonna take diesel exhaust out of the air, these are gonna take, the kids, and the teachers and the staff will have better environments to work in.
Yep.
The flu season with these systems in place would go way down, should go way down.
But I would agree with Stephen. I think it's that probably the path you'll end up going down possibly is ionization, and it's too new, and there's not enough research, and I think how that will be implemented in 6 months to 8 months to a year will be significantly different than it is right now. UVC, if you have UVC upper room light, is probably the best, where you're having fixtures on the side, but then, again, you have to make sure that they're not shining down, right, because it can hurt eyes. But then you have to look at the ceiling tiles, right, and then with a reflection off our ceiling tiles, and we don't really have that. So now you're talking a cost if you put that in, now do we have to replace all our ceiling tiles, so they're not reflecting down UVC light. And if you put them into our UVC or our HVAC system, people have to go in there and change those bulbs and clean those bulbs pretty frequently, and they're not, you have to change bulbs on it, so there's a maintenance cost to that, and the degradation of the system, pieces of the system, because they're exposed to UVC light, becomes an issue as well. So,
and trust me, there are hundreds of companies out there working to solve this problem. And I can even speak for our own company. Probably the fastest development that's happened in the last 12 years has been on this UVC light situation, because we've had television studios, movie productions call us and say we need a solution for this, and so we've been pouring money into it just to get them back to work to sell our normal product. My point on that is that I really do think in the next 6 to 8 months, the research is going to fall together, the compliance agencies are going to fall together, and manufacturers are going to solve all these problems, and the cost is going to come down. The hardest part right now is getting bulbs, and getting them from a reputable source is a very difficult problem. So that was kind of what all about. We didn't want to we're not saying we're not doing it. We're saying we need to get to an even playing field before we can start talking about it.
Well, that's good clarification. So we know it's definitely on the radar, and more developments will be coming.
As said earlier, UVC is dangerous to humans, and if you get something wrong, you're now exposing everyone to that. It's not a little thing, it's a big thing, so it's gotta be right. Are we done with that one?
I think we are.
Okay, 603, defeasance.
Yeah, I'll turn this over to Brent.
Yep, so I did kick out a memo for you to read. Please disregard the heading. This is a copied memo. I liked the content, so I updated the content. Did not produce it in 2018. That's a joke. So.
You're very efficient.
Crystal ball.
Yeah, embarrassing. So we had the discussion at the Finance Committee, like we always do prior to a board meeting or annual meeting, about defeasance. Defeasance outlined in this memo, it simply is a process of over-levying your annual debt service payment. And that money goes into account, it builds and bears interest, and then it goes to pay off future debt load on that particular debt service item and issue, they call it, as well as principal. And so for us, what we've done for 2 years in a row, starting 2018, as you could reference by my memo, is we've used defeasance twice to pay off our debt service, pay down our debt service to the extent that possible with that over levying. In 2018, I think it was $237,000 that we defeased. Last year, it was $1 million. And this year, we have the potential of about $1.5 million. We've maintained about a 1.13 mill rate over those 3 years, and that's how most schools will defease. This year, if we did not use defeasance, we'd be at about 9.94 mills. So for us to expand our annual debt service levy, $1.5 million, that extent would bring us up to 1.13, about 1.1, 1.0 to 1.3 mils. The Finance Facility Committee are bringing this to you. We have a proposed motion to include a defeasance amount to be consistent with the prior year of about 1.13 mils. What I would just submit one last piece is, what does this mean to the average taxpayer? Is about $120 on a $100,000 property. That would be to defease a $1.5 million, use $1.5 million in defeasance. Does that make sense? Is that understandable?
Yeah, you said 1.13, it's 11.
I'm sorry, 11.13, yes.
The advantage is that the primary school was a little over 14 million, and if we can defease again this year, we will have over 2 million of it paid off. But we can't change the 20-year length of the referendum. So we have to wait till we hit that 20 years. But at some point in time, we won't have to levy, we'll have over 2 million paid off.
Yeah, so, yes. One of the important pieces that I left out was our financial advisor, our R.W. Baird. Mike Clark has come to visit with us several times about this, right? And so he produces these schedules. And so I asked for 3 looks, 500,000, 1 million, and 1.5 million. And I just got these today. And so I could send these out, but if we did defease 1.5 million, the savings on our debt service is 554,000. So we would shave off on that $23,554,000 savings, pure savings to the taxpayer. Then we would add that to the 1.5 million, so we would shrink that cycle up $2.5 million, which carves out 1 year on that debt service cycle. And then the other year, the new last year, is much less as well, down from like 1.4 million to 422,000. So this is what defeasance does. And we can do that, I think, for the life of this loan if we have capacity or interest.
Okay, can I get a motion, or?
I'd like to make the motion that for the 2021, I'd like to move for the 2021 debt service levy to increase the defeasance amount, which allows the total mill rate to be consistent with the prior year, approximately 11.13 mils.
Motion by Bill,
I'll second.
second by Stephen. Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote. Barb?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Shelley?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And Adam says yes, passes 7-0. Transportation contract.
So we've been working with Cobussen in regards to our amendment to our transportation contract. Like we did last spring, we had an amendment put in place for the beginning of this fall. So Brent, I will turn it over to Brent. We've been working with them to come up with an agreement for moving forward, since we are in the online enhanced instructional model right now.
Yep, so, and again, a memo placed in the, placed in there for us, is drafted for you to get a summary, to have a summary of the discussion we've had with Cobussen. And what they're looking at is an 83.25% payment of routes that aren't running, so that they can survive, frankly. So in this memo, the other parts that we talked about were the safety precautions. We feel like our discussion with Cobussen has been good, and that we don't feel like we need to put strict parameters around our needs, because they've been responsive to everything that we've asked. And there was safety training discussion, and Coviston is absolutely open to and has open arms and wanting safety training. And then the last piece is that we're looking at co-curricular travel. We just haven't had much, in the tune of like $4,000 this fall. We fully understand that once we engage in more regular co-curricular travel, that we would bounce right back to those rates. But it's not identified in last spring's amendment. So the plan is, and under recommendation from the Finance and Facility Committee, is to take a look at the current amendment, which expired on September 30th, and update that with this information. We would bring this back to you for formal approval. We don't have that done because it hasn't passed through legal counsel yet. We're working on it. So we probably would bring that back on the 19th if it can be done then, or November.
Okay, so that's informational only. 605, approval of the 2020-2021 staff administration compensation increases.
Yeah, so at our September 23rd contract review committee, we had a discussion regarding the wage or compensation increases for the different employee groups. There is a memo attached. What we use as a guideline per state law is the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which is at 1.181% for this year for teaching staff. That ends up to be $1,000 across the board, which fits right with their professional growth plan and professional compensation plans. And then same with so for our administrators and our director, coordinator, specialists, labor groups, we're again 1.81%. For our support staff, if you look at our professional growth model that's in place, that ate up a lot of that 1.81. So we felt we need to give a little bit more there, recommend a little bit more there. So there's an additional 19 cents per hour of supplementary compensation, which would mean every support staff member would get a 25-cent raise moving forward. One of the reasons this is typically done, obviously, in the spring. I don't know, something came up in the spring. I can't remember what it was. A pandemic, and then there was concerns about a budget repair bill. So I think the district was wise just to wait. That right now there is, it doesn't appear that there's going to be a budget repair bill at any time. Because there was concern that we would have some of the money that we were expecting for this year's budget taken away. That didn't happen, so I would recommend that we move. The committee recommended we bring this forward for approval.
I'll make the motion to approve I hate saying it this way. Do I have to say it this way?
You can say however you want.
There's no other good way to do it, I guess. I make a motion to approve the CPI increase of 1.81% of the teaching staff, support staff, administration, and director, coordinator, specialist, labor groups, with an additional of 19 cents an hour supplementary compensation for support staff.
I will second.
Motion by Stephen and a second by Angie. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, please explain why you're having difficulty with the CPI.
Because I do not believe that we're tied to that any longer, and I hate keep referencing that. We are at liberty to pay as we see fit.
Yes, I understand liberty, but in the New World Order thing, we also have the responsibility for trying to keep our employees functional.
I'm not talking about the pay. I'm saying we spent 2 years coming up with an alternative compensation package that includes a growth and a performance component. And then to wrap that up and say that's going to be CPI, to me, just doesn't make sense. Why did we spend those 2 years doing that? I think using CPI is a good reference to say, are we keeping pace? Are we, if Brent was to come in sometime and say, CPI is at 3% and your growth and compensation only works out to 1.5, we'd sit here and go, oh, well, we need to do something different then, right? I mean, we'd keep that as a key, but again, it just, from someone who sat there at the table, as others of us have for 2 years, saying, let's get away from that method, and then to keep referring to it.
So CPI has really is really a reference point, but we're not obligated to tie anything to it.
Yeah. And this didn't say that, it just said.
Right, it just said.
You're not obligated to tie anything, but statutorily, it's a ceiling. And so you have to approve a supplementary increase. I mean,
But we do
you can
anyway.
do it, carte blanche, you can do it, but that's the
Okay, so
intent and
that's the-
purpose
that's
of
the
the
reason
statute.
that CPI
Yep,
is
exactly.
in the discussion at all. is that
Exactly.
It is a ceiling, but it can be exceeded.
And $1,000 a staff, teaching staff is gonna get, again, it just ends up lining right up with CPI. It's not because we started with CPI and said,
No, I
this
agree.
is what they're gonna get.
Yeah.
That was at the end of this, because they've already gotten their contracts that have that in there, because that was something we had, as a district, guaranteed them through their professional growth and the performance and professional growth goals.
And that's really the reason why, because we did start first with the growth and and it just so happened
It
it
just
just
lines
worked
up.
out. If it had,
That's a good point.
if it had been at 2%, we probably would have said, maybe we need to bump up growth a little bit this year.
Yeah.
You know, but we would have tied it, that, we wouldn't have just said, well, CPI is 2%, so we're gonna give you 2%. We would have tied it back to those two metrics was our plan, right?
Or if CPI would have been lower, we still would have been at that 1,000.
And we would have had to have board approval, but we could have still done that with board approval, assuming we could get the budget for it, which is always the.
Well, next year, the prediction is much lower, so.
Much lower.
You'll go through this exercise differently.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think the motion still stands, it just,
Well, what I'm hearing you say is our effort was well planned.
this year.
One
Yes.
year at a time, my
Yep.
friend.
Go ahead, Shelley.
19 cents an hour for the support staff?
No,
That's
20
all we can do is 19 cents an hour?
25 cents. 25 cents.
It adds up to 25 cents.
It was 6 cents, and we bumped it up to 25 cents. So the 19 cents an hour is a supplemental that we have to approve.
So Shelley, maybe the easier way to think of it is, so you take all the support staff, right, and that 1.8%, which is what we looked at, right? A lot of that was eaten up by the professional growth plan that we have in place. So a lot of that went to specific people because they were in that specific year where they earned that, which only left 6 cents an hour for everybody else. And we didn't feel that 6 cents an hour was, that would just be an insult, right? So that's why we have to prove it to be supplementary to go above that to make it so it's 25 cents an hour. Everybody gets a 25 cents an hour raise. And then there's other people who have professional growth that's been their year, they will get more than that depending on where they are. Does that make sense?
Well, yes, it makes much more sense. I was just like, that to me would be a slap in the face if I were support staff. We know how much support staff does. They are everywhere. I think they really move the whole schools with all the things that the support staff do. And I was like, 19 cents an hour to 25, it just seems ludicrous. However, the explanation is much better, so I appreciate you clearing that up for me.
Any other discussion? Vote, Bill?
Yes?
Stephen?
Yes.
Shelley?
Yes,
Julie?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
Barb?
I'm abstaining.
Barb's abstaining, and then Adam says yes, passes 6-0 with one abstainment.
do I have to abstain from that? No, I'm okay, never mind.
Abstainment is never you must, it's always a you may, okay?
Right, I was, never mind, I got it.
Okay, 606, crew rental contract.
Turn this over to Brent again.
Yep, 3 years ago now, we developed a rental agreement for crew, just like we have with our daycares and any other renter of our facilities. And so we worked with Department of Public Instruction as well as our auditors to align this to the statutes. And we did a calculation. So the dollar amount there of $45,000 a year is relative to our facility rental agreement. And we're asking for the board to approve this. Mechanically, this becomes a Fund 80 levy and then transfer over to Fund 10 to support those operations in Fund 80.
I'll make a motion to approve the crew rental agreement with the School District of Lodi for the 2020, 2021, 2022 school years.
This is Shelley, I will second.
Motion by Stephen and a second by Shelley. Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote. Bill?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Shelley?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
Barb?
Yes.
And Adam says yes, passes 7-0.
You went out of order, Adam.
I'm switching it up on you. Policy first readings.
So yes, there are 4 policies, and one of the policies is procedures. Just, again, this is a first read. They all were approved, reviewed and approved at the policy committee meeting. One of them is a brand-new policy on school memorials that the board had asked the administration to draft. So if you look at the policy, you'd be like, that's not what we wanted you to do, Vince. But when you look at the procedures, then it kind of lays out, I think, what you were looking for.
And where are the procedures?
They're not on this document.
They're not attached?
No,
Well, I didn't see them.
I didn't see them either.
Oh, remember it was 2.
Somebody should fire that one.
I was thinking, wow, you guys really copped out on this one.
Yeah, this was all blank,
We
completely
already
blank.
saw it, so
Yes, there's a whole,
another thing.
We think we should do something.
there's a whole other level, there's a whole page and a half of procedures.
That's why this is a
So
first
that will
reading.
be, that will be coming back
Because it's
twice,
second
because this is
reading.
not a first reading for that.
Oh,
particular-
Nope, then I'll have to come back again. You're right.
But the rest can come back for second.
I was sitting there thinking, do I need to email somebody, or, I guess I should have.
Always email somebody.
I was kind of being a pest already this week, so.
So we'll talk about that one next time. The other policies are just, again, updates. The seclusion and restraint policy had to be updated, just so some changes in law. So Ms. Logan put those changes together. And then the other policies on graduation requirements and graduation exercises is allowing students who complete their HSAD to participate in Lodi High School graduation ceremony and earn a high school diploma from Lodi High School.
Okay, there are no second policy readings, and there are no gifts and donations. Come on, War Dogs, come on. Come on, War Dogs.
Is that helping?
Administrative reports. Okay.
I'll just let you read the report. Yeah.
Okay.
Tiffany, Student Services?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add, other than, we have a large group, of highlights of activities, the, professional practice goals. We have over 100 people signed up to participate, so I'm excited about the opportunity to partner with Nick and Jen Kramer on leading that, beginning kind of foundational discussion about equity and how it applies to education, so I'm excited about that. Other pieces, in-person instruction, of course, I always have to do a shout out for our special ed teachers and assistants and everyone working in the buildings and all of the students that we have in, and it's just really cool to see how excited some of our students are that haven't been in and that have a lot of needs, whether it's occupational therapy, physical therapy, just more significant needs, and so we're able to meet those needs, even though it's not in full days of school, meet some of the needs of the students in our district. So, so I just shout out to everyone working in the buildings and really appreciate all the work that they've done. So, and then just last, we're excited that our school mental health grant, we are allowed to carry over all of our funds from last year, which is really rare for the state to allow carryover. Usually we carry over 10%, and because of COVID, we're able to carry over all of our funds to this year. So we're really appreciative to BPI or the state for allowing us to do that and to continue to maintain the area of mental health for the district.
Well, that is great news.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Amy, for the primary school?
All right, so, yeah, so just kind of some of the highlights that I shared in my board report, you know, we're into the second month here. Staff spent a lot of time in September meeting one-on-one with students, doing some assessments for literacy and math, just to get a good idea of where we currently are, and then to help with instructional plans moving forward. We have a student service team, which is the school psychologist, school counselor, reading specialist, and myself. We meet weekly. One of the things we're checking is student attendance, but also engagement and seeing what's working and what supports can we put into place. So teachers, they can fill out a student concern form, and from that we can then meet with the teachers and determine, okay, what are the next steps that we can do to help support those families. So we have some one-on-one check-ins that we're doing, driveway visits, online Google Meets, additional smoker destruction, as well as bringing in some of the different students. So that information is from teachers, but also families can definitely share it with myself or the teachers. And again, we just want to try to brainstorm whatever supports we can for those students. We've been diving into our school goals, and so this today I met with my professional learning communities, my grade levels, and diving into our goals for reading and determining, looking at the data to see where we currently are, and then making plans for how we're going to help support student growth across all the grade levels. And then the big piece is really all the preparations we're taking to get ready for blended. At the end of September, the teachers each took inventory of their classrooms to see what materials they would need in order to get things ready. And then the last week and this week has been rearranging all of the rooms. So my custodians, Mr. Rick and I are going to be going through making sure that all of the classrooms are ready for blended. In addition, we've been working on starting to look at some of the schedules to determine what it's going to look like for the kids when they're in the building, as well as what it would look like when they're doing those at-home activities. So teachers have been beginning to really plan and dive into that layer of detail. And then Stephen Ricks has been generous enough to come over the primary and help us film a video that we're going to show here tonight, so that families can get a kind of a glimpse of what things would look like or what they can expect for that. So. Mr. Bryan, do you feel like this is the best time for me to share that?
Yeah, let's play it.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Amy Fossbender, and I'm the principal of the Lodi Primary School. Today, we want to show you what your child can expect when they come back to school in the blended model. We want to share some of the safety precautions we're going to take in order to keep your child and our staff safe and healthy. All students and staff will be required to wear a mask. We will use social distancing, keeping as close to 6 feet away from each other as possible. We will have regular hand washing times built throughout the day, using both hand sanitizer and soap and water. The majority of the day will be spent in the classrooms, with the exception of a physical education and recess. And for those, we will have students outside as much as possible. All students and staff will be required to safely in the classroom. An assistant that took your child to recess will bring them back into the building where they will wash their hands or provide hand sanitizer. They will sit at their assigned table or desk for eating. They will not need to wear a mask while they are eating, but they must put it back on as soon as they are finished. We will have staggered recesses so that only 3 or 4 classrooms will be outside at a time. Teachers or assistants will walk students to their designated play area. Students will use hand sanitizer before they head out to recess. Students will wear masks. We will try to keep students as socially distanced as much as possible. At the end of recess time, an assistant will sanitize the space for the next group of students to use it. Here are the 4 areas that students will play. Classes will rotate to each of the different areas. Area 1 is the blacktop. Area 2 is the grass free play area. Area 3 is the play structure, and Area 4 is the soccer field. We will have built-in bathroom breaks. We will have 2 stalls for females and 1 stall and 1 urinal for males. We will have 2 sinks used at a time. Students will wait outside of the bathroom and there will be spots on the floor where they will stand. Students will return to their spot when they are done in the bathroom. If a student needs to use the bathroom during the day and not during an assigned bathroom break, they should stand and wait on that line. We will walk on the right side of the hallway. We have signs on the floor to help the students know which way to go up the stairs and which way to go down. There is hand sanitizer placed throughout the school. Students will be asked to wear a mask as they enter the building. They will be asked to maintain social distance and hand sanitize as they enter the building. They will proceed directly to their classrooms with their teacher. Students being dropped off should stay in their vehicle until they hit the designated student drop-off spot. An adult will motion your child to get out of their vehicle. Once they are out, they will join a staff member at the playground in an assigned spot for classrooms. Students riding the bus will exit the bus at the bus drop-off spot. They will then walk down to the playground and meet their class at their designated class area with a staff member.
At the end of the day, we will have staggered dismissal for those students that are walking home, those that are getting picked up, or those that are riding the bus. I sincerely want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video and hope that it helps you get a better understanding of what the blended learning model with in-person safety precautions is going to look like for your child. We want you to know that we are going to be doing everything we can to ensure the safety of your child and our staff. We will constantly be reflecting and evaluating what we are doing and making adjustments as necessary. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to contact me, our office, or the district administrator, Ms. Frank. Thank you.
Nice job.
Very well done.
Had good talent.
Thank you, Stephen, for doing it, Sarah Keller for doing the majority of the talking, she's much better at that than I am, and then my staff are helping with it, but we do hope that like just laying out some of these different things can help families understand and see what it would look like to have blended. Are there any questions or anything? Well done.
Okay, thank you. Mike at Elementary OSC.
Sorry, I was muted there for a second. We are continuing to monitor attendance, just like Amy said at her building. We're monitoring at our building, not hers, but and attendance continues to be high. So we measure attendance by kids submitting work or showing up at Google Meets. And then the next layer is we're starting to look at what engagement looks like. So some kids we're seeing do show up for Google Meets, but then aren't turning in work. So we've had a number of different strategies to engage kids in that. The most intense strategy that we have is bringing kids in on site. So we're up to 40 students over the course of the week coming in. Some of them coming in on Monday, Tuesday shifts, some of them coming in on Thursday, Friday, and very rare exceptions. There's kids coming in more often than that. And so that's what we're doing to provide supports now. And then we took the iReady test at both LES and OSC, and this was really interesting because we've never even thought about proctoring tests at home, and so that was a new experience. Interestingly enough, the results for LES are very comparable to last year. There, ironically enough, was 1% decrease in reading and math from last fall to this fall. And for for OSC, the reading results actually were 2 percentage points higher, and math had 4 percentage points lower. So, you know, a number of the questions were, what's the spring of the year? What did it do to kids' performance? This one measure indicates that it didn't have a huge impact, but I am going to review it with all staff too, because I'm very interested in their perspective of what they're seeing. Because obviously it's a much less controlled environment than we're used to administering the test. And then we are looking at our online schedule. We talked about potentially making some moves from our math times to the morning. We've said it takes about 3 weeks to make any kind of change to see an impact. So we're in the start of week number 3 where we're trying to communicate with families and just trying to reach out more to get kids involved. So we'll see what that information has for us. And then I just included an example of daily announcements that we do each morning as a way to try to bring a sense of normalcy to online school. So we include student birthdays, we include student work in them. There's usually a little bit of principal dancing, so it's a super great time for everybody.
Thank you for including one of those so we could see that.
Either thank you or I'm sorry, whichever works better, Adam.
Can we see the jacket? Can you stand up?
Oh yeah, you can. Hold on, you can see my buddy here who's sitting on my lap too that needs to go to the bathroom, so I'm trying to keep him calm. Here's my jacket. I don't know if you can see. Is that good enough?
Oh yeah, we can see it. Yes.
Yeah, a little too good.
Dr. Carl's already asked if he could borrow it for his next formal occasion. I told him I would think about it.
Thank you for the levity. Joe at the middle school.
Yeah, so not a lot to add to my written reports, just a few things I want to highlight. We also completed iReady testing a few weeks ago, and our next step with that, Nick is going to be leading our teams through kind of a data dive and looking at the data a bit closer. We're starting with math and reading, but that will be taking place over the next few weeks, and I'll fill you in at the next board meeting. We talked about surveys at the beginning of the meeting tonight, and I just kind of want to walk you through what our plan is at the middle school. We've broken the data down by grade level, and I was able to share that with the teachers on Friday. So our next step will be looking at it from a grade level perspective and seeing what adjustments we need to make to improve this online enhanced model that we are in. What changes can we make, what we're doing well, and just overall what we can do to support students more. Vince talked about this earlier, but cross country, middle school cross country has been going on for a while. Really, they've been doing a great job. We have had a few meets that have been canceled due to the pandemic, not by our team, but by opposing teams. But it's just nice to see the kids out there and running and participating in activities. So thank you for allowing that to go on. We have also been selected as a NAEP school for this upcoming school year, and that's the National Assessment of Educational Progress, and it's an exam that will be administered to all 8th grade students in math and reading. That the time frame right now, I believe, is January through March, so a day somewhere in there, and obviously depending on what our status is, that may impact that assessment. And then we've just been increasing the amount of kids that we're bringing into the building. We probably are up, I don't know, around 40, 45 kids that we're bringing in through the course of a week. We're also scheduling some appointments individually with students who are struggling in certain areas and spending a few hours of time with them, trying to get them back on track and showing them some tricks and different things. So I encourage parents to continue to reach out if there's anything that we can help or support with.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
That is all that I have. Yep, thanks.
And then Joe at the high school.
All right, thanks, Adam. First of all, I just wanted to highlight, Vince had brought up the fact that some of our sports teams are able to have some contact days. So we started that on our new turf, some open field and contact days. And I can tell you, I've been out there just to take a few pictures. And I was out at the girls' soccer, the first time the girls' soccer team got to be on the field, and it was at night, and the field was just glowing. And you can really see that our students really need to be able to get out there and do some things, because they were delighted, they were social distancing, they were doing everything that we wanted to do as far as safety protocols, but they were really having a great time. So that was nice to see. I was just as excited to see some of those kids out in that field and be able to practice safely. We did have a stadium open house this past Saturday. I want to thank Student Effort for really putting that together and giving some of our families in the community an opportunity to come in and walk on the field. There's an article in the Portage newspaper that highlights that day, so you can read about that. But I really appreciate Sue for putting that together. A couple other things that I want to highlight. There has been some discussion about homecoming and what we're going to do with that. We've had an opportunity to meet with our class advisors, our class officers, and some of our leadership council members last week, and we really want to still try to have a homecoming week, and we're thinking about moving it to the fall to spring sports season, probably early April. So there is still a discussion about doing that and doing as many of the things that we would normally do, parade and all the events that go along with homecoming. Hopefully things look different in April. And we're also discussing some other spirit activities that we can do right now. And I know that the primary, elementary, and middle schools kind of going through a spirit week right now. We're considering something similar to that. We're going to be talking about it this week in the next couple of weeks, and it would be kind of coordinated with the weekend of Halloween. I wanted to thank, we talked about in the admin report, I talked a little bit about device and material pickup. Our staff did a really good job organizing all the materials and getting them down to our admin assistants, Don Schwartz, Kat Trinan, and Werger. So they did a great job. They were out there for 4 hours running items to cars, and again, in our survey, people were really happy with that. It has a lot to do with teachers and our admin assistants, Dawn, Kathy, and Lynn. A couple other things, some student recognition. I'm really excited about the golf academic all-state. I mentioned that in there. And Brooke Bacon, Kate Bridie, Bailey Clark, Ellie Davis, Kyle Green, Tyson Haas, Nick Hoffman, Leo Kopp, Hudson Kopp, Greg Lins, Paul Lins, Brian Meitzner, Andrew Smith, and Haley Taney were all recognized by the Golf Coaches Association of Wisconsin because they earned the right to be all-state because of their GPA. So congratulations to them. Also, we do have 2 nominations for the Presidential Scholar Award. That is mentioned in my report, and that is Brooke Meinholz and Nathan Schilling, both seniors. They have been recognized for the 2020 Presidential Scholars Program, so I want to congratulate Brooke and Nathan for that. We have parent-teacher conferences coming up here, and we had to get kind of creative with that. We wanted to try to keep it as normal as possible, so we are going to have conferences from 4 to 8, but all of our conferences are scheduled. So our teachers were able to set up a You Can Book Me account, so parents can utilize that, and there are 10-minute increments that they can sign up for, and either sign up for a Google Meet or a phone conversation. We'll see how it goes. I was the one that kind of introduced them to it, and the teachers were really good about getting it together and getting it done. So I did include a link on my report to our website so parents can go to that and sign up for a time to meet with teachers. I did mention something about AP Scholar Award recipients. You can read through that. The names on here are mostly our seniors from last year, and there are a few seniors this year that are mentioned. And then the final thing I wanted to mention from my report is the student representative for the school board selection process. So in the last couple of weeks, I sent out a message to all of our student body about the potential of one student being elected by the student body to be a non-voting member of the school board. So 5 Lodi High School students submitted application essays to earn the right to be included on this year's ballot. Each candidate submitted a letter to me, and And in that letter was why they were interested in the position, what are some experience in the past that best prepares for such a role, what type of impact do they envision the role as a student representative will have on the Lodi School community. And all of them did a great job with their essays. They also could include a video that was included in the ballot. So our student body, because we're not here at school, it's hard to relate to some of these students. So they got to watch a video, they got to read the essay, and then they got to vote starting this past Thursday night all the way up until Friday about 3:30. The 5 students that were on the ballot, there were 3 seniors, 1 junior, and 1 freshman, which I was thrilled to see. The seniors were Sophia Boyer, Dorothy Deems, and Nick Prosak. The junior was Ashley Richard, and the freshman was Jameson Keikinger. And I do have the results, and I wanted to announce that today, and my hopes are that this person will be sworn in at the next school board meeting. It looks like we are going to have another Prosak at school board meetings, hopefully. His name is Nick Prosak. He earned 43.5% of the vote, so I'm really excited about Nick. Nick is a student that a lot of other kids, he runs in a lot of circles, so it does not surprise me that the student body decided to vote for him. He's very much involved in sports clubs, activities like track, musical, leadership council, FACT, Link Crew, FFA. So he's a very well-rounded individual, and I think the student body knows that, and they know him really well. So I'm really excited about him having the opportunity to be able to be a student member on our school board starting in November. And that's all I have.
Thank you for letting the kids make that decision. That's a great idea. Nick, for curriculum.
Yeah, just 3 things to highlight. One, just an amazing feat our educators over the past few years, and very much so during the 1920 school year, worked to create snapshot learning target documents outlining some key elements within their courses or grade levels that they focus on, teaching and learning wise. And so, these documents, they're wonderful reference tools for our students and our guardians that would like to preview the skills or the content that they'll be focusing on. And furthermore, they serve as a valuable collaboration tool for our educators. And all of those documents now, there's a few that are still under construction, but the bulk of them are, and completed is, I was about to say completed, but it's a relative term because they're fluid documents. We're always coming back to them. We're always looking at them. We're always making adjustments. But they can be found on our district website now. So you can go under each school, there's an academic tab, and under the academic tab, those snapshot documents can be found. So big thank you to our educators and our administrative team over the past few years for working on getting those out there. And I also linked them in the board report. I'm going to highlight really quickly a professional learning opportunity that all of our certified staff and many of our non-certified staff as well had the opportunity in September to take part in. So we welcomed Dr. Rainey Briggs to the Lodi School District. Well, he came into us virtually, and he facilitated a professional learning opportunity that was focused on educational equity and creating culturally responsive classroom and school environments, which helps to support kind of the foundation for some of the PPG work that many of our staff are engaged in. And we'll welcome Dr. Briggs back again in early December, and he will do a second presentation with our team. So we were very lucky, feel very lucky and fortunate that he was able to join us, and his bio is attached if you want to learn a little bit more about Dr. Briggs. And then we were excited, we received word that once again we'll be receiving the peer review mentoring grant from the Department of Public Instruction. And that grant, the intent of that grant is to support public school districts in developing or refining peer review or mentoring support programs for initial educators. An initial educator is defined as an educator who's within their first 3 years in the profession. And that grant was for a total of $8,625, and we'll use that allotment. The bulk of it will be allocated toward mentor stipends, so our mentors within the district who support those educators in their first 3 years in the profession, and then also professional development opportunities for those initial educators as well. So happy to have that grant.
Okay, thank you. DA, District Administrator.
Yeah, I'm just gonna highlight a few things. If you look in your board docs, there's some pictures of our food service workers. This week is School Lunch Week, National School Lunch Week, so there's a proclamation from Carolyn Stafford Taylor, who is our state superintendent, declaring this as School Lunch Week. As I mentioned earlier, our food service has distributed 3,500 free lunch and breakfast meals to students in the community in the month of September. So I want to thank Gary Downer, Jill Daling, Melissa Gutline, Heather Klicko Hermanson, Jean Markroff, Carrie Riley, Karen Rip, Barb Savoy, John Stefani, Stephanie Timmons, Mary Varner, Serena Walters, and obviously Paula Larrabee for her leadership in that as well. Secondly, I just wanted to highlight tomorrow we have a WASB regional meeting, and two of our board members are going to be recognized. Stephen Ricks has achieved the level 2 of WASB member recognition program, and Shelley Pear has achieved the level 3 in the WASB member recognition program, and both will be recognized at the fall regional meeting tomorrow night. And finally, there is a video of a stadium time-lapse video that we have. If Tyler, you want to pull it up? It's about a 3-minute video that Drew Ryan put together for us. So thanks to Drew Ryan for putting that together, and here at Midwest Turf, he's given us a picture. If you want to hold that up so you can see it on
the big screen.
on the big screen, but that could be something we can post either here in the boardroom or
Finally.
somewhere else, so. Thanks to Midwest Church for giving that to us, so that is my report.
One of us is weeping.
One of us is weeping.
I'll sit like this the rest of the day.
I just thought it was old age.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Kind of unbelievable, isn't it?
It's done.
Yeah.
We probably have grass growing around the edge.
We have a little, so we'll have a little landscaping that still has to be done in the spring. That Brian Schmidt will come back and do, but otherwise everything else is completed.
So board president report. The pandemic is a marathon, has been said over and over again, and it's so easy to give up. And there's a lot of people who have said, I'm tired, I can't watch it anymore, I can't participate anymore, and I'm looking the other way. And I'm so thankful and so grateful that the people and our staff have not chosen to do that and have chosen to take it head on and continue to take it head on. And it's just so satisfying to work, be part of a team that continues to do that on a daily basis. So. Reports, CISA 5.
Well, I was, well, actually, Bill and I are both gonna be there, tomorrow night, not in person. I was there at the last board meeting in person, so it was really nice to see real people, real humans.
Okay, co-curricular items?
The boys cross-country team finished with a regular season of 6 wins and 1 loss, and the girls cross-country team was 4 wins and 3 losses. The team only competed in duels as per our athletic guidelines and did not compete in any invites or conference meet. Cross-country sectionals will be held on October 20th in Poynette. Sectionals will be held on either October 23rd or 24th, but a location has not yet been determined. Overall, the girls' tennis team was 6 wins and 4 losses. The subsectional winners included 1 doubles with Krista Mayberry and Olivia Lang, along with 2 doubles consisting of Mira Potter and Lexi Carls. The numbers were definitely down this year, but we pulled in a few new players that wouldn't have had a chance to play in high school without this season. JV had a fantastic season, winning the majority of matches they played in. Coach Deans was a big help training newer players at their tennis swings. The team in general adapted very quickly to the new COVID era. Every day they would fill out the screener, enter the courts wearing masks, use hand sanitizer on the way in, and would find their dedicated resting area. Players quickly staked out their claims and it became their home for the season. They became adept at avoiding other players and equipment. Opposing teams would often follow the same rules, and it became very easy to keep teams both separate and safe. You could tell from the first few minutes of our first practice that they'd been waiting for the chance to get out and play. The energy level was high for how uncertain the season was, and while we had struggles along the way, everyone was upbeat and very much enjoyed the much-needed season of socializing and competition. Without this season, 12 seniors would have missed their last year after putting in so much work over the last 3. I wanted to thank the board for giving us the trust and opportunity to run the season safely and to the fullest possible extent. Other than that, we have non-athletic co-curriculars. We have a number of clubs and co-curriculars that are meeting or will begin meeting virtually in the coming weeks at the high school. Currently, the following clubs are meeting. FACT, the Tobacco Awareness Organization, the Gay Straight Alliance, Interact, the Latino Leadership Club, the Leadership Council, Lodi Minds Matter, the Science Club, and National Honor Society.
Okay, thank you. OSC report?
Excuse me, at our last meeting, we, elected the new officers, so Jen Morgan is the new board president. Deb Volk is vice president. Jess Woodburn is transitioning into treasurer with, Jill helping that transition, and Amber Edwards is the new secretary. Continue to talk about fundraising. We did a first read, we're updating our bylaws, so we did a first read on that. And we also have some changes we want to propose to the charter, mainly dealing with the lottery. So we did a first reading of that, we can bring that to this board, hopefully I think November, December we were looking at. And then Ally Stone last year entered a new charter school in the state. She was asked to do that again this year, and this year she's actually mentoring 2 schools.
Board reports, contract review.
In contract review, we've actually covered most of what we talked about when we talked about the staff increase and then the professional practice goal options, as Tiffany had talked about. Equity.
Okay, curriculum?
Curriculum, we met on the 16th of September and had English Language Arts Department speak to us about what they are doing and their needs. And so there's a lot going on there as far as they're using the Wednesday collaboration. Has been going well, and they feel that that's a good program. Offering high school courses, Shakespeare courses. They're going to expand to 2 sections. That went well last year. Creative writing, writing for publication. Looking at some new textbooks. And let's see what else. Middle school, they're doing video and doing drawings, and then coming back in 40 minutes, 3 of 5 sections. I don't know exactly what that was. And anyhow, and then they're working on expanding library books for multicultural issues or topics. Elementary, the Lucy Calkins program, and literacy through writing. That's about it. Books are being sent home. We heard 4K to 2 that books are being sent home. Books are being sent home everywhere. And then elementary, they're looking at phonics.
Okay, thank you. Facility, finance.
I think we've covered everything here tonight.
Okay. And then policy, Shelley?
We have the 4 policies that we also went through tonight already.
Okay, future meeting and agenda items. Does anybody have any future agenda items they want to add?
I have a quick question.
Yep.
Before we do that, can I do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's actually for the annual meeting on October 19th. Are we literally as humans in the PAC?
Yes, we have to be because you have electors who have the opportunity to, who are going to be voting. And for us to try to do that online or virtually is very difficult. Not knowing where people are or if they're residents and things of that nature. So we have to do that in person in the PAC next Monday, yes.
Okay, I thought so, I assumed so, but you know what, it never hurts to check, and if people are listening in, they might not realize that we do actually have this one meeting that is in person, and we'd like to encourage people to come and attend.
Yep, so it's 7 o'clock on Monday, next Monday in the PAC.
Cool beans.
Okay, you have the meeting scheduled, so we don't need any other stuff on that?
Yeah, so we have the annual meeting next Monday. The following Monday, we will have the fall or winter co-curriculars on the 26th, right? So
We'll see a lot of each other.
Yes,
we will.
we're happy here. We have no reason to go back into closed session or return, so adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second the motion.
Motion by Steven, second by Angie. Roll call, Barb,
Yes.
Angie,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Shelley,
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And Adam passes 7-0, 9:20 PM. We are adjourned.